I was trying to put the thing in the in the in the camera holder, and then it just started anyway.
Well, it's a good job we weren't saying
Oh.
anything bad.
Oh, we never do. So you'd be safe. You'd be safe, and we're which is probably filthy. I mean, normally when we've done these together before, like I've mucked around and I've just made it go live too early. And so,
That was actually
so much fun. But yeah, no, this was actually I
Live by
genuinely
accident?
messed it up. I genuinely messed it up. Okay, hey, while I get this loaded, where are we? Give me the.
Copenhagen right now in Denmark. So we've only been here 2 days.
No, I got here yesterday morning.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, because we overnighted on the ferry from Oslo. So
I feel we need to work backwards because we took the ferry from Oslo down to here.
yes,
What was the DFDS?
DFDS, and it was like a 17-hour, something like 18-hour crossing to get here. So feels like I'm counting that as like Copenhagen, or at least half of that should be Copenhagen time, right?
When you say crossing, it wasn't exactly like the Atlantic.
No, I mean, like I actually looked on the map, so I think we could
It's
see
500
land
something kilometers.
the
right?
whole way, right? As
Yeah.
well, it was like really close to.
Okay, I got my comments in chat.
Yeah. So we basically actually just kind of like skimmed all the way down Sweden, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, there was a point there where we were, and I know that there's some people from other parts of the world where other countries are close by, but like for me, I was going to say us in Australia. For me in Australia, every country is a very, very long way away, even the closest ones. In fact, it's not New Zealand which is the closest, it's Indonesia. That's a long way away. But we were on the ferry yesterday, and it's like, okay, if we go into the kids' room and we look out that side, that's Denmark, and if we go to our room and we look out that side, that's Sweden. And it's like, oh,
That's pretty cool.
it's
Actually.
just is it a novelty factor for me? Or?
No, it is. I mean, because we're not super far away from every other country, but we also like have to cross water or fly as well to go. Like, I mean, obviously out England,
Going to Scotland?
Scotland, Wales, yeah, but like that's all kind of like Great Britain, right? Like it feels like the same place to us when we're there anyway. So if we want to go somewhere else,
Yeah.
it's a plane or a ferry.
Okay.
But it's like a 1 hour plane, not a 1 day plane.
The country of Great Britain. I still don't understand all that. But I do take great pleasure from seeing how upset people get at me deliberately not understanding. Hey, let me do the sponsor bit. I'm just popping the iPad up here, and then we'll keep going backwards and we'll talk about things because I know some questions here about where we are. So, are we actually in Copenhagen? So sponsor
How
this.
do we prove that?
I don't know. It's cold and wet.
Yeah. England.
Well, yeah, okay. I realised as soon as I said that. It's like Scott's at home. Collide. Sponsor this week is Collide. Endpoint security solution for teams that want to meet SOC 2 compliance goals without sacrificing privacy. I don't think anyone goes out and gets excited about SOC 2, do they?
No. And we're also looking at ISO 27001, which is like
I'm getting questions about that too.
feels very similar.
So maybe we should talk to Collide.
Yeah, I need help.
With SOC 2 compliance guide. Collide, as we get to the end of the year now, Collide has been one of my most prevalent sponsors of the year. So massive thanks to them. Really appreciate having them on board. And yeah, we know where to go and we still have to know all the paperwork. So that's handy. Now, a couple of questions came up here. I think someone said something to the effect of, are you sure you're in Copenhagen? It looks like you're in a safari tent. So who was this? This was a Christian. I would point the camera down, but we've taken the kids' room because the kids are in Charlotte's and my room that has the jacuzzi because we're like, okay, well,
Entertain the kids.
We'll let them go
Yep.
up to the roof and jump into the jacuzzi at, what's the temperature now? 3 degrees.
It's actually
Celsius.
warmer than it was this morning.
I know. Well, yeah, where we go next is cold. So because we did that, we've taken the kids' room and let's just
This
say
is the tidy part.
you couldn't get in here without tripping over. So, who else here? Christian, greetings from Norway. So yeah, working backwards. So we came from Norway. Now we came on Friday. Was it Friday?
Yeah, Friday afternoon.
Yeah, well,
we
it
left
was
there.
Friday. So the night before, on Thursday, Charlotte and I did a wedding dinner for, I guess, for more people from this side of the world. You had the privilege of going to both,
Yes,
both
yeah.
weddings, which was
Brought my
nice.
family to this one, which was good because
Brought your
it's
family.
much closer and easier.
Yeah, there. Noel Merrigan was there, and Charlotte's some of Charlotte's closest family. But I think other than that, you were the only people that were actually at both of them.
Yeah.
But it was. Look, I posted some photos to Twitter. You've seen some of the professional photos as well.
Yes.
Like, it's like fairy princess kind of the photos.
Yeah.
Just like epically good
And it
because
just started snowing as well, like later on. It's like,
yeah. Well, there's photos of all. I didn't post the ones of all of us. You're welcome to if you want, but they're all of us like standing outside, dressed up.
snowing outside like the Norwegian Parliament. Was it the
Yeah,
Parliament
it's
building?
Parliament,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was a great shot.
So that was good. I guess working backwards. So I got to go into Parliament the other day. Talk about that.
Yeah.
Not for any cyber things, but just because we have a friend, which was handy. So that was kind of cool. It's having been in Parliament House in Australia a few weeks earlier. Man, it's different. It's like, this is this like tiny little, very very cute, rustic Parliament that's very very open. And I didn't tell you this, but there's security. Like they go through, they scan your bags and everything. It's pretty straightforward. When we were in Parliament House a few weeks earlier in Australia, now Australia's not a big place. We've only got 25 million people, but our Parliament House there apparently has 5,000 rooms. Like it's ginormous.
I don't even know if you can go in ours in London. I don't think you can just go and walk around. And actually, when people, because you were in there when people were parliamenting.
Yeah, so there's some ministers talking about some stuff that I didn't understand, but Charlotte said it was something to do with self-driving cars. But yeah,
nice.
it's kind of cool because you're standing there and there's someone up on the lectern, they're talking, there are a few MPs sitting around, like one of them's just there on Snapchat, he's just bored, another one's like yawning.
They keep getting in trouble for going to sleep in our parliament. Maybe that's a parliament thing. Like an MP just asleep on a bench.
And I won't. I'll say offline what the MP told me. But when I was in Canberra in an MP's office for a while the other day, I sort of got the impression that there are some very long days there, and people need to weather those long days
with a nap.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, we are in Copenhagen. Brendan's saying earlier than normal. We're sort of really out of sync because it is at the time of recording here 1:20 on a Sunday. Now I'd normally do these on a Friday, but we were doing the boat thing, and then yesterday, we went to Tivoli.
Yes,
that was really cool.
Yeah.
Christmas markets.
That was like a full-on day, so there's no time to stop.
But
that
it was
good though.
That was the most Christmassy Christmas, wasn't it?
Yeah. What do
cold.
they have? Like the most like decorative Christmas lights anywhere or something. It's like millions of lights is their claim to fame. It was really cool. You were cold. We were okay.
So. The kids didn't really care because they were just wanting to get on rides. I was cold, but yeah. Christian was just going to tell us that you should go to Tivoli. So yes,
that's kind of like Tivoli. Top of the list. Yeah, it was insane. It's so good. It was just like the kids loved it. If you want to do something super Christmassy, magical, like it was definitely worth it.
But we did a lot of walking. So I think we walked about 10k, and we walked into the Christiantown, whatever that one is, where they basically absconded from Denmark, and it's an independent nation, and they basically just sell pot. They smelled a lot of pot walking through there.
We did.
But it's
so I didn't know about this place. I was just like, it sounds. So it's like an ex-military base, and they just like took over and then broke away from government and law and stuff. I was just like, wow, it's pretty interesting to walk around anyway.
Yeah, so that was interesting, and then we went to the I forget the street. Someone here will know, but it's that street with all the colourful buildings, all the pastels that you see everywhere.
And it had like the cute little bridges over the water right out front.
The pastels were a bit dreary, if I'm honest. Today it was.
I haven't seen the actual sun once in Scandinavia yet. It's like the whole time I've been here, it's just been permanent cloud cover.
Well, Charlotte and I was saying that today. Like, I've been here or in Scandinavia now, I guess a week and a half. She's been here 2 weeks and a half. She's like, it's been 2.5 weeks since she's seen sun. So, jeez.
Okay. Withdrawal.
That's a bit rough. Brendan says, love how Troy's complaining about the cold weather over in Copenhagen while summer is in full swing back home. Yeah, I had 34 degrees at home a few days before I left.
It's like 3.4 now.
3.4 now, but I was looking at the weather report. So you're going back to England.
Yeah.
Charlotte and the kids and I are going to Helsinki tomorrow, and Helsinki is, I think, -8 or something was the forecast. And then we're going to Lapland, and the forecast for that was like -18.
Nice.
And then we're going back to Norway to catch up with you guys. Are going to go skiing, and that's going to be about the same, I think. So.
Yeah, Hemsedal's like minus. Kind of like
-13
teens. Right now.
Yeah. -10.
So give it another 2. We'll be back in 2 weeks.
Anyway, so that'll be fun. We didn't talk at all about content today.
Nope. I get no heads up, as usual.
Oh, thank you, Siri. She doesn't understand. I just jotted down some things earlier on. So one of the things that came to mind is today is Have I Been Payne's birthday, 9th birthday.
We need to celebrate.
I was going to say we should have a beer for that, but we already have. We've been to for the Copenhagen's? What do you call people from Copenhagen?
I don't know if they have a phrase for it.
Ari's just saying when we walk back, he's like, "What do you call Danish people?" Charles like, Danish.
Danes, aren't they? It's just
Oh,
Danes.
that's true. Danes.
Is it Danes?
Yeah, Danes.
Yeah.
Danes, yeah. Anyway, we went to War Pigs, which was like
Oh,
it was
yes.
an epic barbecue place.
Yeah.
Which we tried to go to yesterday, and it was just packed out, so we went early.
Oh man, yeah.
Got in.
But that's a good sign though, right?
Ate too much barbecue. But yes, so that was we didn't toast have I been playing, but 9 years, which is damn.
So is that the birthday of like public launch?
Mhm.
What's the
4th of December 2013 was the day I like pushed the go live button on the blog post
Wow.
and the service. It was meant to be a bit of fun.
Yeah. That's how all good projects start though, right? With no intention of being big, I feel like.
Yeah, and it's the same for Report Your Eye. Obviously, where it's something that sort of starts as an itch that you scratch, and I'm sure that you've had probably just as many completely failed projects as I have in the past.
Yep.
That have gone nowhere, but that's kind of the joy of it too, when there's not an expectation of being a big wonderful thing. I'm not quite sure how 9 years later and it's still going, there's still a need for it, I haven't been arrested, all these things are wonderful. No, I tell you, not to reminisce too much, but there was certainly a period of time there where it's not that I was worried about getting arrested, but I was just worried about there being pressure on the legalities of the service, particularly when there are those other leaked services around.
Yeah.
Do you remember those like leaked source, we leak info?
Super shady looking and feeling though.
Well, I did an NDC meetup during the week. When did I do that? I think I did that
Last
Tuesday.
Wednesday, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I think
Tuesday.
it was
No,
Tuesday.
it was Tuesday.
Yeah, because we were with you on Wednesday, eating barbecue again, way down south. And I was like, no, I did it on Tuesday, and I've one of the things I've been doing at talks and meetups lately is there's a little bit of a insight into what some of these other services were, such as Leaked Source was the one that really, really, frankly, got under my skin because it was just so overtly selling other people's data with the intention of exploiting them, and eventually that's what the guy got charged with, trading in stolen identity data. But yeah, he was trying very hard to be anonymous.
That's always a good sign, isn't it?
Well, and this is, I'm cautious because for some people there are privacy reasons why they might want to be anonymous online. But when you're running a service like that and you're going out of your way to try not to be identified, that's not such a great thing. And I think you've probably seen this before. I'm just going to find the photo because it makes for a great conference talk. But this guy was sort of running this service, selling a whole bunch of data. I was really worried that he was whoever was behind it, and I always figured, it's probably going to be like one guy at home sort of thing.
Yeah.
What do you need? I think I've proven that.
Yeah.
And I was always sort of worried that he might have been incentivizing other people to go and get more data because I kept seeing so many breaches occur and like they'd be on Leaked Source before they're in any other usual places.
Okay.
And I thought that was very odd. So I was admittedly very happy when the thing got shut down because I'm like, okay, finally that's the end of it. But the bit that I find funny, and this is what's in the talk as well, so the guy's trying to be anonymous, no information about him on the website, no one who ever asks questions, journos and things, we get a straight answer, and he's making a bunch of money from selling data through things like ads on Hacking Forum, so pretty clear what his intent is. And as part of his attempts to sort of fly under the radar and be anonymous, he's driving around in this. Right?
It's like the least anonymous car.
Which is for those of you listening later on, a bright green Lamborghini Gallardo convertible.
Yeah.
So, when you're 26 years old and you're making all of this money from selling other people's data and you're driving around.
But then what do you do with it? Yeah, like you've then got to like justify how you got there, right? Because people are going to think, well, that's a pretty big leap. You've got won the lottery.
Crypto?
Oh man.
So I mean that was sort of, I guess, one of the things I was worried about having been paying for. But then, and again, we're completely winging this because I didn't plan anything to talk about. We just got to try and kill half an hour or so. As more of the governments came on board, and then we started getting support, well, actually, I used to say we in the royal we way because it was always, as you know, just me. So I would go home and I would write all the code and I'd process the data and I would hand edit each of the PNG logos for each of the data breaches.
Wow.
And I go to imageoptimizer.com just to compress it a little bit more, and it was me doing 100% of everything. But of course now the we is Charlotte as well. So at least I have someone there. She's literally over there at the moment answering tickets, Zendesk tickets from people who bought API keys, who I keep getting. And hey, if people listeners have an answer as well, please let me know. Maybe you do. But I keep getting support tickets for things like, please cancel this account.
Yes. No. Yeah.
And every single email that goes to them is like, if you wish to cancel this account, here's a link down there.
Yep.
And we've got, like the support website. If you start typing that in, Zendesk Magic kind of matches it to the thing. And it's like, here's how to do it. But how do you? I don't know if you can like auto reply if someone sends an email that just sounds like it already has. I just don't want to hear from these people. And I know that sounds really much. But I don't.
When it's like an FAQ, it's like read the FAQ. Like,
I know.
Come on. We get that.
Any good answers?
No, we
really
have
obvious
exactly
stuff.
the same troubles at Report URI. It's, like, how do I cancel my account? How do I cancel my subscription? Like, and we get all of these requests, like, please delete my data. And I'm like, oh, look, we have a knowledge base article. And obviously, like, us doing that manually is really, really hard.
Yeah.
But, like, the button on the website that does it makes sure it gets everything and does it automatically. So
Yeah.
I'm like, don't ask me. Like, the
Yeah.
better way is to actually use the feature on the website.
Do you have people then just go off and do that and they don't bother you?
Well, I mean, they don't email me back, so I don't know. Like, maybe they just go and do it and don't email back to say, got it or something.
You normally hear from people if they're unhappy.
Yeah, that's true.
It just feels like there needs to be a better way. I think part of the problem is that for forever and a day, when Have I Been Pwned sent any email, whether it was a transactional email from the website or it was an invoice from Stripe, it always sent from no reply at haveibeenpwned.com.
That doesn't work.
Oh, but it says no reply.
I often read like because we have like the catch-all inbox that has always a folder. Man, I'm like every now and again I go in there and just have a scroll through, and I'm like, how many people are emailing back to like the automatic invoice robot?
See, there's your problem. You actually have a catch-all.
Oh no, like that. Oh, do you just bin them?
Well, accidentally I just binned them. So for a while there, and the way I did this is via DN Simple. They've got a whole bunch of other sort of domain-related tools, but you can have a catch-all email address. You can forward it onto somewhere else.
Ah, okay.
So for a while there, I had that there. And then at some point in time, it stopped working. It used to just go to a folder with an Outlook rule, so I wouldn't see it, but if I wanted to, I'd go to the folder and put it in.
Yeah.
It stopped working. I'm not sure why. And then when I set up the Stripe stuff properly, and then the Zendesk thing, I just set up billing at haveibeenpwned.com. So it comes from there. Any reply to there automatically creates a ticket in Zendesk.
Okay.
But I was like, okay, well then, the no reply stuff, still the transactional emails come from there, so I should actually be able to get those. But for some reason, like the catch-all is just not working, and I think that maybe that's a good thing.
It's like what do you? It's like you don't know what you don't know. It's like ignore them, but no. There's loads of things like that where you just think, oh, this should be really easy. But it's not.
Yeah. It's not. So anyway, it's no longer a royal we. It's a we with Charlotte Knight, which is nice. So she does a lot of work on that. But there's where I was going with that. So there was a period of time where I was worried about, look, is someone going to come and shut it down in some way or put enough pressure that it's hard to run it. And it's just been nice as time has progressed and it's, I guess, normalised, and there's been the government's come on board and the law enforcement things, to the point now where I've been talking to you about the Medibank stuff. I probably should talk about Medibank again. That's a mess. Medibank being the private health insurer in Australia that got ransomed and has just gradually had data dumped on the web. And I think I mentioned to you, because it was while we were together over the last few days, but this ransomware crew has now dumped the last set of data. They say that's the end of it. They've just dumped everything remaining. So this is after they've gone through and they're like, we're just going to dump all the abortions here. We're going to dump all the HIV here and all the psychotherapy patients. It's just it's unfathomably
like, it doesn't get much worse than that, does it? Like,
short of actually going out and directly inflicting harm as opposed to just doing it implicitly, I'm just not sure it does get worse. Yeah,
can you imagine if that was you though? Like that must be.
Oh, it'd be horrific. And for the people in there as well, like I'm sure that we'll hear stories at some point in time about people having self-harmed or something related to that. It's hard to imagine not. But in a case like Medibank, so it looks like that's sort of the end of them dumping everything. We saw that statement, I showed it to you, we were walking around the Christmas markets in Oslo the other day, statement from like the Russian embassy. They're upset. They're upset.
They're super upset.
They're not upset with Medibank
being hacked.
Yeah, I was trying to find the right words because like allegedly Russians going and hack. They weren't upset about Medibank being hacked or the impact on life and everything else. It's like they're upset that the Australian Federal Police have said, yeah, it's Russians, and we're going to work with the Russians to try and get the Russians to, you know. So okay, so good luck with that.
Yeah.
So basically, we're going to go to the country that's invaded the other country that we are lending support to and say, could you please stop doing this other thing that has upset, you know. Yeah.
Optimistic.
Politicians. That's they're very politicians thing. But anyway, where I was going with the Medibank thing, and as it relates to the concern about the legitimacy of the service, I had this, I don't know if it was an epiphany, but whilst I was in Canberra, when I went to Parliament House, and doing a talk for the AFP, and the Medibank stuff was all blowing up, and it was kind of weird because it's like, on the one hand, you had the AFP out there saying, this is, again, Australian Federal Police, saying, you download. I think the term that they used and I don't know if it was a press statement or it was something by the media that's picked up the right words, but they're basically saying, look, if you sell this data online, that's going to be a criminal act because it's, you know, obviously doing nasty things to people. And then there's another bit in there about even downloading it and possessing it might be, you know, might be illegal. Or something to that effect.
Might be. Like, that's not very.
I'm sort of well, but this is the thing. If it's already,
and if you do this,
I
you
do not
might be
have
breaking the law. And this came from the police.
The irony of this was, you know, we're talking about if people are downloading this data and having it, there are questions about the legality of it. Now selling it, we just go back to leaked source, right? This is deliberately disadvantaging others. You know, number one, bad. Number two, for your own financial gain, which just kind of makes it even worse.
Yeah.
So there was that. But the one that I found, I don't know, maybe amusing is the right word, with the AFP situations, that we're seeing these statements about not going and downloading this data, and then at the same time, I'm in there at the AFP by invite, talking to them about
obtaining
the near 12 billion records that have been pwned, because it's very, very relevant to what they do, and understanding how these data breaches happen, where the data comes from, is a big part of their cyber arm, I guess. And then I'm sort of thinking about the Medibank thing, you know, like does that data go into Medibank or not? And the little sort of fight going on in my head is, you know, this is really impactful data. People should know about it. Obviously, we're really, really concerned about anyone having it and anyone doing anything with it. So it's probably better not to go in there just because of the massive volatility of the whole situation. But then Medibank is referring people to like cyber.gov.au for advice, and then cyber.gov.au refers them to have I been pwned. So it's this like weird sort of cyclical thing where it's like, we shouldn't be doing this. Hey, go and use have I been pwned, which does this. You shouldn't be doing this. Go and use have I been pwned, which does it. So,
but I guess just like, you know, I don't know, like the structure of the leak, but just pull, you know, the email column. You know, you're not going to go in there and tag like what type of data, which person lost or anything. It's just like a yes, no in the breach, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, so, all right, well, that makes for interesting content, which I haven't discussed here before, about actually loading it and why I decided not to. And to scroll back a little bit, like this incident was so volatile on the world scale, because you think, let's scroll back, say, 3 months. If we had said, what's the most impactful data breach there has ever been? You know, like what's going to be the immediate thing that comes to mind? So for you.
Like Ashley Madison?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like that's always the default answer. It's always Ashley Madison. Why is it so impactful? Well, you know, 30 million plus people, some people killed themselves, enormously sensitive personal information there, so on and so forth. And then we had this, and I really feel like in many ways, and maybe the difference here will be actual impact to life, which we knew was pretty catastrophic for Ashley Madison. In many ways, this is worse because it's still 10 million plus people. Okay, that's less than 30 million, but it's also basically just Australians. And for a country with 25 million people, it's like 10 million is a lot. Plus psychotherapy, STDs, abortions, things like that. Such volatile, sensitive personal information. And I think that maybe a little bit like Ashley Madison, it's the periphery stuff. You know, Ashley Madison became a massive incident because of the search services that were stood up around it, the people calling up radio stations so the radio station could check if they're in the breach and then tell them live on air. Not if they're in the breach, but their significant other was in the breach. So it was the circus around it, and in a way that's what these this ransomware crew created with Medibank, because it's like, we're putting out public threats. We're basically telling the cops to go and get stuffed, which, it's the dark web, and they're in Russia. They're able to do that. And then dumping all of this really, really volatile data. And I spoke to a couple of other journo friends after things like the abortion file and psychotherapy file. And I said, look, do we even report on this? There was an argument from it was either from the AFP or Medibank, that the ongoing reporting of the incident, I think the term I saw used, gives oxygen to the hackers. Gives them, they were looking for impact.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I can.
So I'm like you, right? I'm hesitating. So okay, I can kind of see that, but it is out there anyway. Like, it's easy to find.
Yeah.
I think I just got to the point where it's like I feel, like genuinely sickened by the whole thing, and I really, it's not that I want to have the luxury of just being able to not think about it, but I really think it just got to a point where it's like I just stopped sharing information. I think I've shared one or two very little things since then, namely the thing the other day where it's like, okay, this is the last of it, and then of course the Russian embassy one, but I just, yeah. It's very hard to explain. I just really felt like giving it any attention was just not in the best interest of the public. But anyway, as it relates to loading it, so I did speak to many people in different agencies and involved companies. And it's a little bit like, remember, I don't know if you remember, but there was a VTech data breach, Hong Kong toy maker VTech.
Yeah.
That's the only data breach I've ever removed from Have I Been Pwned. The one retired breach.
Is that the one where they asked everybody to delete it, and you did as well?
Well, yeah, but everybody basically boiled down to 3 people, because that was one where a hacker who we believe was in the UK, never named, I suspect a minor. It was really basic. I can't remember if it was just insecure direct object reference or if it was SQL injection as well, but it was really low-hanging fruit stuff. So this person obviously found a vector, didn't think that VTech would take it seriously. So he's like, I know how to make them take it seriously. I'll just dump all the data. Which is also shitty because, well,
come on.
The wrong thing to do, but it did make them take it seriously. And we do have so many precedents where just having a vector like that where you can get data alone is not enough.
Not sufficient.
To get an organization to take it seriously. Now, that never justifies dumping all the data, and I think the only point I'm saying is I can see the crossroads that this person is at when they're like, might not do anything, I know how to make them do it properly. And like, we've been there before in other ways. Remember Nissan, right?
Yeah. That was like,
that came up again this week.
We have to talk about all the other car hacking that's happened this week.
When we found that insecure direct object reference with Nissan, which would just take a VIN number and then allow me to control bits of your car.
Yep.
And we tried to get them to take it seriously, like sending emails, speaking to people there, and they didn't do anything. And then eventually it's like
Twitter and used everything, didn't we? Like every available channel.
Used everything. And we already had contacts, already had phone calls, and then it just got to the point where it's like a month after reporting it, they haven't done anything. And I wrote to them and said, look, I'm going to write about this. Do you have any comments? And they said, yes, please don't write about it. So I wrote about it. And then they took it seriously. But, that's a bit different to just going and taking all their PII.
Yeah.
So,
and it was literally like the day you published, it hit like the BBC in the UK,
Yeah.
and then the app just stopped working.
Yeah.
Like they just pulled it down. Somebody just went into the data center and like flicked off the switch.
I guess the point is that people see that, like they see those precedents, and they know that it can be very hard to get traction. And again, like we shouldn't be in this situation. We shouldn't have people dumping data or exploiting those vulnerabilities. But as it relates to VTech, so that's what someone did. They grabbed all the data, they sent it to Lorenzo at Motherboard.
Yeah.
Lorenzo sent it to me, and I put it in Have I Been Pwned. So like 3 of us. So the feds said, look, forget the way they phrased it. Basically, the person who took the data originally isn't a problem anymore. That sounded a bit more grim than what I meant it to be. But it sounds like for all intents and purposes, they found who it is. They spoke to his parents or something in his room thinking about what he's done, and he's deleted all the data. And then Lorenzo deleted it as well, and it just left me. And the position that it wasn't actually the FBI, it was an ex-FBI agent working for VTech in some sort of legal capacity. But he was very, very reasonable. He said, look, if you can delete that as well, we can say to parents with a high degree of confidence that there is no more data anywhere else, and we don't have to explain like this weird Pwn thing with the funny name. How's that stuck for 9 years? Jeez, Pwn.
How did we only learn about the logo 2 days ago?
What? You know,
When Jacob turned the logo.
that's
Maybe a different video.
That's. I want to do a not safe for work NDC talk one day. That's
Yep.
what it is.
Yeah.
Oh.
No.
Oh, no.
But that was like Cyberbroken. It was like semi.
Now, what I want to do is I want to go through data breaches, not safe for work ones, the ones we won't even mention here, but some of them, and then some of the content in there, and then some of the stuff happened. I'm just thinking how many emails I'd get after that. I can't really-
But with like the VTech one, when they say delete it, do you just like delete? Could you not just like delete the dump file, you know, like the zip backup or whatever, and then leave just the emails tagged in?
No,
How about you, Paul?
because you can't then say all that data has been removed. So that the message that they wanted to give parents is we can now confidently say that any traces of your data that were exposed as a result of this incident have been cleaned up. Now, of course, they had to take me at my word as well, in the same way as when it's ransomware crew trying to shake down Medibank,
Yeah.
they would have to take me
We
at their
promise
word.
we won't dump your data. But they kind of had to now, didn't they? Because
Well, they had to, because they had to send that message. Apparently, another couple of companies are now on their ransomware page, so they've moved on to the next things. They've got the precedents. But VTech, so to get it out, I had to write a script to go through the input list of email addresses, go to table storage, go to each one of those email addresses. If VTech was one of multiple breaches, then just take out VTech. If VTech was the only breach, then take out the whole row. And it was,
that's funny. It's like, oh yes, like I know about this person, and you're just gonna like
Yeah.
remove the VTech tag
Yeah.
and then leave the
Yeah.
person.
yeah, well, if they're in there on another breach.
Yeah, that makes sense. It just seems funny.
As it relates to Medibank, that was what I kept thinking back to, which is like, look, there are precedents where either I've removed data from Have I Been Pwned or I haven't put it in there. Another one I didn't put in there was the Australian Red Cross Blood Service. And my data was in there, 500,000 Aussies, until Medibank, that was the largest breach that we'd had in Australia. And that didn't go in there because we being myself and the Australian Red Cross Blood Service and AusCert, who did all their IR,
Yeah.
all had a really high degree of confidence that there were no other copies of the data. So we went, look, there are no other copies of it. You have actually gone out and proactively notified everybody, which is really important. I'm confident that you've handled this in a responsible fashion, and I basically just like ticked all the boxes of Have I Been Pwned now being redundant.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to ask the question, have I been pwned in the Australian Red Cross Blood Service data breach, because you have been told already. And that's what I got to with Medibank as well. And again, in conjunction with combination of discussions with parties. And to be clear, like, no party, whether it be law enforcement or Medibank or anything like that, ever said, please don't load this data. It was never like, if you do this, we will send the hounds or anything like that. But it was literally just a conversation going, this is such a massively volatile thing. What is in the best interests of, number one, the community, and to some extent Medibank too, because like they absolutely are a victim of this. And we don't know exactly how they got in, other than we've heard talk about a compromised credential. One would imagine that alone would not be enough to do all the damage that's been done, but clearly that played a role somewhere. But I was very confident that they'd notified everybody involved.
Yeah.
I was worried that by having, even though you and I and probably everyone listening to this knows it's just email addresses and it just goes into table storage and returns, like yes or no, it would have put a lot of pressure on them to have to try and explain this thing. There were apparently, in fact, I hadn't even seen this, but there were apparently other search services and things popping up, and they got knocked off very, very
Pretty
quickly.
quick. Yeah.
Very, very quickly. And it's not that I was fearful of that happening to Have I Been Pwned, but I think one of the things that might have caused me to go, okay, well, there's now a greater body of evidence to suggest putting it in there, would be if we are seeing lots of dodgy search services and no one knows who to trust, or if we're seeing lots of malicious downloads pretending to be this breach and then it's malware or something else nasty. So that's how I got, never said that publicly before, but that's how I came to that conclusion. And I haven't gone out and said it publicly because I just honestly was sick of talking about the whole incident. And there was only a couple of people that even asked, and I ignored them. And they went away.
You've had a bad run of breaches in Oslo recently. I've noticed quite a few.
Yeah, well, you're in one.
It seems like, yeah, thanks. Oh, Matt, that was so typical.
Tell that
It's
story
like,
because that's hilarious. Sorry, that's the funniest data breach.
Yeah, what
person
was that
being in
now,
a data
like
breach story. That was September.
8 weeks. A couple of months ago, I went to Australia for your like the Australian wedding, and kind of like land in Australia. I have good like cellular data roaming in Europe, but it doesn't work in like America, Australia. So I just usually buy an eSIM when I land in the country. It's like super fast now with an eSIM. It's so good. It's like buy an eSIM, 30 days, fill out the form. What's your name? What's your address? And so obviously, like I put my name, but then your address because I needed to have address in Australia. I was staying at Troy's house, so it's like my name and address, and then I had to put like my passport number and then your credit card number because it had to have like an Australian like card number. So I signed up to this SIM card, I got the eSIM, used it, went home. Like 2 weeks after I get home, it's like, oh no, Optus, who's the carrier that I bought the eSIM from, it's like Optus has been breached. And it's like my name with your address and like my passport and your credit card in one person. So yeah, I got us both pwned by
thanks, Matt.
using mobile data. That's, oops.
And of course, that opened up that whole other can of worms about how much identity data should they be retaining? Like, what should they need in the first place? What is sufficient for purpose?
So I've looked at this in the UK and like why, and it's just like why is it so much and why do they need it? And apparently it's like if you do something illegal, you know, with the SIM, and you go download like inappropriate material, they can wind it right back to the person that bought it. And I kind of get that. But then free Wi-Fi is everywhere. Like, you know, I'll just go to a coffee shop and use the Wi-Fi. I'm not going to use a SIM card that traces back to me.
It's not just that, but it's like there's VPNs and there's Tor, and then there's all the other messaging apps and other things you can do nasty stuff over that are E2E encrypted, and you know,
it just feels like a disaster waiting to happen. And I don't know like how much of it is required, but the other thing that I find is loads of services ask for like way more data than they reasonably need for the service to function.
It sort of comes back to, on the one hand, like I'm maybe having trouble to explain it because it there's obviously some regulation around knowing who is the owner of a device which can transmit or an account that can transmit. But then, like you say, you just jump on Wi-Fi, you know, or even if you have a device without a SIM at all, you can jump on the Wi-Fi or tether from somewhere else.
And you can buy second-hand phones like everywhere with no trace back to you. You know, like go on eBay or go to a local phone store. And so it's like it's totally easy to completely avoid all of these issues.
It feels like you're giving us a lot of thought.
Well, no, but I do though to try and understand why.
Yeah.
You know, if you sign up for Report Your Rights, like what's your email? Because we have to send you a verification link.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's like no name, no address, no anything until you get to like if you want to pay for it. And then of course there's like a minimal number of steps for the card data. And then it like we just found that all out to Stripe because I'm like, I don't want your name and address. Like that's a huge level of responsibility. So
I feel like it's very much a remnant of a bygone era where there was a time where it predated the internet in its current form, where it was so easy to do things anonymously on a carrier service without anyone knowing. And, you know, somehow that law has stuck. And I think we almost kind of need things like the Optus data breach so that we can question these laws and go back and look at, you know, if things should change. I showed you the other day, there's some guidance now out of the Australian Office of the Information Commissioner. I got that around the wrong way, AOIC. Anyway, our privacy people. And so apparently they've now passed a bill around really, really serious penalties as well. So those penalties were, I think, 50 million Australian dollars, 30% of adjusted revenue for the period in question.
that's pretty steep.
Which, like, and I tweeted this, I said, you know, Australia now has the most severe penalties in the world. And people are like, oh yeah, but GDPR doesn't offer you 30%.
No, not at all.
And then people are like, well, this is just going to kill companies. Good. So, okay, well, no, there's two problems with that. So the first problem is it's not designed to kill companies for the most part. I'm sure there is a point at which it's like, yes, they just should die. You know, but for the most part, let's say it's Optus. No one benefits, other than maybe Telstra, from Optus being dead, right? Like maybe a competitor benefits. But if a competitor benefits and it's not a complete duopoly in Australia, but if you knock one of them off altogether and they're no longer there, or if you knock Medibank off altogether and they're no longer there, we lose the services, we lose the competitiveness, thousands of people lose their jobs. Like that's not the goal. It's not there to bankrupt them. And these are maximums as well. when someone's saying, well, how's a small business going to afford 30 million? It's like, well, a small business is not going to get hit with 30 million. But
no one's been fined the maximum amount under GDPR yet.
Well,
it's like,
because
if you set the precedent of like this is the worst thing that can happen,
Yeah.
like how do you ever set a harder fine? If you've already hit the cap somewhere.
And this was like go back before GDPR, and it's like so Talk. I think it was Talk and Carphone Warehouse got like £400,000 fines from. Geez, I forget all my acronyms at the moment. Information Commission
The
Office
ICO?
in the UK.
Yeah.
So that was like, you can be the worst people in the world, £400,000.
Yeah,
which is just
done.
nothing.
Like,
But now, under GDPR, it's a percentage of revenue, which is great. We got to see with Australia how much actually gets stung for these ones.
But then look at like the Ticketmaster one recently. So the ICO issued the MPN, the monetary penalty notice, to them, and they were like, "Hey, like COVID's hit and we're really, really struggling." And the ICO was like, "Okay, yeah, we'll wind back like 50% of the fine." And I was like, "What? Like, hang on a minute. Like, I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to be able to negotiate the fine after it's
What about just not doing this shit in the
like,
first
yeah,
place?
yeah.
That's
Don't get
that
breached."
should be the point. There's a comment here. Tony says, "Is it KYC and audits pushing companies to collect all the datas? That's dead. That's so." Roundabout answer. I tweeted about this recently, but I just had Coinbase under the guise of KYC asking me for a huge amount of personal information
I saw
that
that.
had absolutely nothing to do with my Coinbase account. So I have a Coinbase account for Have I Been Pwned donations, and also, by the way, never tweet anything about crypto. Like, just do not tweet anything about crypto.
But there's no bots on Twitter anymore.
Because well, it's funny because I did this after the whole Musk takeover and everything. It's like, this is just as shitty now as it was before in terms of like just massive volumes of bots. But it's massive volumes of bots and then massive volumes of self-anointed experts who will tell you that everything you are doing with crypto is wrong. Yeah. Don't use Coinbase because they're evil. You've got to have a local wallet. Don't have the same address. You've got to have one that like rotates and anonymizes and everything. It's like, oh my God, all I wanted is for some people to buy me a coffee. But Coinbase asks for things, so it's just used for Have I Been Pwned donations. The wallet address is on the Have I Been Pwned website, so it's pretty clear where it all comes from. And they're like, okay, we need the source of the income. So, okay, well, that's easy, www. Here's the page. But then they wanted information about my net worth, about where I earn my income from. They wanted like a letter from my employer, which would be weird because it's from me. So, dear Coinbase.
Dear Troy, yeah, dear Coinbase.
Troy has been an excellent employee. Signed, Troy. For 9 years now. So they wanted all this invasive stuff.
You must do that. You have to do that.
Well,
that'd be great.
They were discussing this yesterday because there are times like I remember things like one of my companies has one of the cars registered under it, and you go into like our Department of Main Roads to do your registration and stuff, and they're like, well, we need something on the company letterhead from your employer. Okay, I guess I'm making a letterhead.
What's do you put like the Have I Been Pwned logo on it, or is it a different one?
It was a different entity, but I didn't put any graphics on it. I was like, this is a letterhead, and they're like, all it's got is an address and a company name. Yep.
Where are the rules on what a letterhead is? Like,
And you can see the people behind the desk just like, oh, this sucks. I think they've changed that. But anyway, the KYC stuff. So I tweeted about it. I suffered the pain of the bots and the experts. And then someone from Coinbase did help me solve it. So basically back to where I was.
like there's a massive push for KYC, but it's very, I feel like, very financial sector focused. Our banks have suddenly started reaching out to us recently for our company accounts and like, hey, we're just double checking all the data and things. But then so much stuff outside of the finance sector is still so data hungry as well. And, I think it's just a feeling of like, oh, well, if we ask for it and we need it, then we have it. And like, maybe it'll be useful in the future or something.
Yeah, and I think this is where Tony was going when he said it's KYC being responsible for this. But we got to remember the likes of all the data that Optus had. Okay, KYC is not a new thing, but I feel like in the last couple of years, it's really, really hammered us. In Australia, it's hammered us because we've had a Royal Commission into Banking and just loads of questions about banks supporting shady businesses, and then, of course, all the crypto stuff. But the Optus stuff, it goes back a couple of decades.
Yeah. And that's like a super heavily regulated industry as well, like telco, isn't it? I think you can kind of see why there, but still, dial it back where you can.
Data minimization, and this is kind of what we all want, right? Like, what is the least amount of data you need in order to perform the intended duty of whatever it is you're there for? Christian says it's for criminal research of the police. They need to know who as the SIM. So if there's a murder, etc., they can ask the mobile operators who's the phone closed, etc., etc. So I think where he's kind of going with that as well is that if you have the device and you're roaming around between cell towers as well,
Yeah.
then they can do that. And again, you get it, but if
like,
you're a murderer, you just go to flight mode. I don't mean to give away all the secrets.
Stop telling
here,
murderers how to evade detection.
or leave the phone at home, or get the burner phone.
Just, like, there might be murderers listening.
But in fairness, there is surely a scale that has to happen here, where you've got on the one side, it is useful for law enforcement to be able to see the movements of a mobile device and to be able to tie it back to an
Yeah.
no doubt. On the other hand, there is the massive privacy risk, which we've now seen manifest itself with the Optus situation. Yeah. So it's not necessarily to throw one of them out altogether, but should the balance be revised? Should we be saying, and I think this is what appears to be coming down the pipeline in Australia, but should we be saying, look, you only need this amount of data collected in the first place, and I don't know that storing driver's license numbers and passport numbers and things after you've positively identified someone is a good idea. And then what's the retention period when they're no longer a customer as well? Yeah. Are you going to go back and, that murder 20 years ago, we want to see if that guy's SIM was around. I don't even know if telcos store records for that long in terms of like cell tower movements.
It goes back to why we farm out our finance stuff to Stripe. It's like there are retention periods and requirements, and then you'd have to be educated about those and have the liability of it. And I'm like, over to you. The experts, they can worry about this stuff.
Delegate it. Well, and this is where things like some sort of federated identity that we do at a national level, so that there's some identifier we can have that's not a secret but still identifies the individual, would be useful. But then privacy and scales. Christian says, since all cell phone GPS, well, Christian's got a funny keyboard. Knows what SIMs are connected to. I think we got to the point there. Adam Schroeder says the new fines at least somewhat align us with GDPR. Does provide companies overseas with more, maybe unwarranted trust to host things in Australia. I'm not sure that anyone's gonna. I guess the hosting issue is probably a little bit independent to where the company operates. I don't know that people are going to go around and go, oh look, I was really, really keen to put that service in Sydney.
Yeah, it's
but
not
I didn't
like
trust them.
Because you're still going to have to be Australian for it to apply to you, right? It's going to be like the parent owner company rather than the location.
I think then we will probably come back to that whole GDPR can of worms again, which is, and we've discussed this a lot. We won't get into too much detail on here, otherwise I'll get more angry letters along with the Bitcoin stuff. But where people say, look, I'm in the EU, we have a law in the EU, it applies to you, you go, all guys.
Oh, we had this with the discussion about tax as well.
Oh,
it's like the same.
Not the VAT loss. I don't want to talk about that.
That's awesome. But so with the new fines then, and like this is the same with GDPR and with the new Australian rules, it's like the company screws up, the company loses my data and your data, and like we have, especially if it's the Medibank stuff, like super negative potential impact, and then the government takes all the money. You know, like is there ever going to be, or should there ever be, like some distribution of the fine to the impacted parties?
So I think the challenge, and this almost comes back to the class action discussion as well, around is there loss or damage to the individual or is it hurt feelings? And this is, I wrote that blog post a couple of years ago around ambulance chasing and data breaches. And all the time I get emails from companies talking about this. In fact, even this WhatsApp thing, you see WhatsApp in the news the other day?
No? Are they?
So there's news headlines about WhatsApp data breach, 500 million email or 500 million phone numbers floating around. And it's like...
I have a feeling it's not going to be real.
Well, this is the thing. Like, as soon as I saw that, it's like, this doesn't smell good. Like, for various reasons, it didn't smell good. And I'm getting questions from people emailing me about the WhatsApp data breach. And then I found, I forget who it was, but someone had posted on LinkedIn an analysis of it, and they said, well, look, basically what's happened is someone's just gone through, gotten a big list of numbers, kept adding one, and then used public WhatsApp services, which by design need to confirm if there's a phone number at the other end of it or not, and effectively just enumerated the phone number address space. And then it gets passed around as a WhatsApp data breach. Anyway, where I was going with that is I had a law firm from, I don't think I've replied to them yet actually, I might not, a law firm from Germany contacting me, literally saying, can we put banner advertising on Have I Been Pwned if someone from Germany comes and finds themselves in the WhatsApp data breach, and we will give you some commission.
Oh no, but yeah, I totally get that. That's
That's
just shady.
sleazy.
Yeah,
That's
that's
sleazy.
super shady.
It's super,
But-
super sleazy.
Also, like the regulator or legislator that's doing the fining is
Yeah.
probably also in the best position to determine like if and what impact there is on citizens.
Yeah, and it comes back to the whole thing about our new penalties as well. Like we shouldn't have a situation where a company that has a data breach is being killed. Like that's not in anyone's best interest. And when law firms go after them, mounting class actions, they're literally just there to extract as much money as possible. And what I keep seeing, it's certainly not the first time I've been offered money to help a law firm with a class action either, is all they're looking to do is to try and get as many people as possible together that want to pile on to this company that's had the breach. We're going somewhere with that. How do we get onto this?
But if the regulator did that and they determined like there's no impact and you get no money, or there is some impact and you get some, then all of the class action stuff is like kind of gone, right?
That's how we got onto this, because it's like, okay, well, if you're in a data breach, should you have some financial compensation? But the discussion that's come up so many times with class actions as well is what is the losses experienced by the individual? Did they, for example, lose money because their bank account details were stolen? Someone took some cash out. That's a pretty easy one to quantify. Did they suffer other losses because they, let's say in the case of Optus, they had to go and change their IDs?
Yeah.
So, okay, well, yes, I did have to leave work and go out and do that,
and
and maybe that did cost people
Or like
something.
subscribe to some protection service, like identity protection services.
Yeah, but then that's normally picked up by the companies that had the breach as well. But I feel really uncomfortable with situations where someone has not suffered some clear loss going after a company asking for money. Yeah, I'm very, very comfortable with a regulator coming and slapping them ICO style.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. But, let's say it's even Medibank, just to be really...
Like if they disclose your super secret medical condition.
Yeah.
And
that one's almost a bit harder. I think the easy ones are, let's say it's Cat Forum. It's like you're on Cat Forum. You love cats. You're on Cat Forum. They have a breach. Your data's in there.
Everybody knows you like tabbies.
Should you get money back from Cat Forum because you've had your...
Well, it'd come from the regulator that fined them, not from them.
Well, in your proposal, yes. But when we talk about things like class actions, that gets distributed via the law firm, and you get like $18 or something stupid like that.
And the lawyers get millions.
Anyway, I guess the point is, there's a question around, did you actually suffer some sort of a loss that needs financial compensation or not? And particularly when we get into spaces like, well, you started getting account takeover attacks because you use the same password everywhere, so where did it actually come from? Or you're getting spam, or you're getting even identity theft attempts, but where did the data actually come from? So I think unless it's very, very clear that you have suffered a direct loss due to a company's actions, I just feel really uncomfortable with individuals going after money. I like the idea of a regulator being able to suggest...
Yeah, they seem non-biased enough and able to properly determine impact and apportion finances.
They should be, but then every time I discuss that, people are like, yes, but they're the government. Okay.
Well, you got to trust someone somewhere, right?
And it's not the lawyers, not that much. Look, I think we better wrap this up because we've been going a lot longer than what I thought, but we just somehow found content, which we always do. So let's wrap it up. You've got to go back to England. We've got to go to Finland tomorrow. We're going to be together another 2 weeks.
Are we going to do one in
maybe we'll do
Hemsedal?
I think we're together another 2 weeks. So maybe we'll do one from somewhere proper snowy and a lot colder than Copenhagen in another couple of weeks.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, cool. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy. I'll come to you next. I'm going to be in Lapland next week. So next week I will probably come from Lapland, assuming I have connection and body warmth. Cool. Thanks for watching.
See ya.